welcome to yet another live session by Narayana IAS Academy. So the topic that we've actually picked up for today is actually an interesting topic that has been very sensational of late. So this is about the recent ruling of the Delhi High Court in one of the POCSO cases, where it actually said even women, that is, or a women, can actually be booked as a potential perpetrator of child sexual abuse. Okay, so it happens to be gender neutral, and it is not necessary only males are actually being given the offender tag. Okay, so in this particular article, it is important for us to understand various aspects, the provisions as well as the definitions of certain terms like sexual offences, aggravated sexual offences, child pornography, etc. What are the definition of these terms that have been given under the POCSO Act? And first of all, what is POCSO Act in itself? Why was it actually initiated, and how did the legislation be implemented in India? So this is very, very important. And also it is important for us to understand this particular concept of child sex abuse and how it is important for us, to take care of ourselves as well as our, own children, our nieces, nephews, etc. So I hope this particular video will actually throw light on some specifics of the POCSO ruling, so that we are actually aware of it and keep ourselves and our fraternity protected. So this particular topic is actually important from the mains perspective, GS paper 2, under the particular theme of vulnerable sections of the society. As you know, any kind of draft regulations or the Supreme Court ruling, the recent verdict and the constitutional provisions related to the vulnerable sections, that is the elderly, then if you actually see the people with disability as well as women, children, all these people, become very, very important, as well as schemes associated with them. The international conventions and agreements become very important for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. And also this actually forms a part of government policies and interventions for your mains. Okay. Now moving forward, any topic that we actually deal with, in the inception we will actually map it to the PYQ and what kind of question had been asked in the previous year. So similarly, in 2016 there was a mains question with respect to the provisions of the National Child Policy and throw light on the status of its implementation. So what is this particular legislation? What are the provisions? What are the different dimensions it deals with it, the Supreme Court rulings and whether it had gone to an appeal, etc. And then what is the status of implementation in India becomes very, very important for your analysis in the mains examination. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what this particular article is discussing about. So recently, the Delhi High Court had actually ruled that women can also be charged with the offence of penetrative sexual assault under the POCSO, that is Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, and that law is not limited to the male offenders. The court said that this particular law, that is the POCSO Act, does not charge only male offenders, but it also is applicable to women. Okay, so they can also be equally charged of the offence with penetrative sexual assault. Now moving forward, it is important to understand and throw more light on what the Delhi High Court has actually said. The court had actually emphasized that this particular POCSO Act was enacted first of all in order to protect the children from sexual offences regardless of the offender's gender, whether it is a male or a female, they actually have to be given punishment. And also the court dismissed the plea of a female accused who argued that the offence could only be committed by a man. So they actually said the plea was actually given by a female offender, but then the court rejected the plea by clarifying that the use of the pronoun he in this particular act does not restrict the application only to a male, but it's also to a female. Next one, the court concluded that the accused must face trial under the act for the offences charged, including penetrative sexual assault as well as aggravated penetrative sexual assault. For this, we need to understand what do you mean by sexual assault first. Okay, anything that is actually done to you without your consent, whether it is a without consent touch, the random touch by any gender, or if it is, or even if it is in an extreme case, if it's a rape, all this is actually charged as sexual assault. So what do you mean by sexual assault? It is a broad term that refers to any form of non-consensual, without your permission, non-consensual sexual contact or activity, which can range from unwanted touching to rape, is called a sexual assault, whereas aggravated sexual assault is nothing but it involves more cohesive as well as a violent behavior by the offender, and it can actually include use of certain weapons, etc., targeting the vulnerable victims that actually cause a kind of injury on the victims. These are the factors that can actually elevate this particular sexual assault to an aggravated sexual assault. Now moving on, let us understand the background of bringing into this legislation of POCSO. Okay, so the POCSO Act was actually passed in the year 2012 in order to comprehensively deal with the issue of sexual offences against children, and this not only spells out punishment for the offences but also sets out a comprehensive system for support of the victims as well as suggests improved methods for catching the offenders. Now, India, as you know, has actually one of the largest populations in the world, and as per the census 2011, there is approximately 472 million children below the age of 18. And now protection of children is thus very, very important, and protection of children by the state is also guaranteed to the Indian citizens by an expansive reading of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, and also mandated as India is actually a signatory to the UN Convention on the Rights of Child. Here, it is very, very important to know the international conventions which are actually dedicated for women, children, disabled, the old people, etc. Whether India is actually a signatory or not becomes very important for the examination. Now let us see few of the definitions that has been given under the POCSO Act. First one is sexual assault. What do you mean by that? This is nothing but it is the act with the sexual intent. That is, if an offender with sexual intent actually involves in any kind of physical contact without penetration, then it is called as sexual assault. And this can involve activities like touching your private parts like your vagina, your penis, anus, etc., or the breast of the child. Or you can either the offender actually touches it or makes the child to touch these parts of another person. So all this actually comes under sexual assault. Next one is sexual harassment. What is the definition? Here, this occurs when a person with the sexual intent actually does any of the following. That is, one, they may utter a word, makes any sound, gestures, or exhibits any part of the body or an object intending that the child hears it or sees it, or the offender can make a child exhibit his body or any part of it so that it can be seen by that person or another, or can show any object of a child in any form or the media for the pornographic purposes. Next one, if the person repeatedly follows, watches, or contacts a child directly or through electronic and digital means, then it is also called a sexual harassment. Next one, the person, if he or she threatens to use in any form of media real or fabricated depictions of this particular child in sexual acts, and finally entices the child for pornographic purposes or gives the gratification thereof. So this is actually the definition of sexual harassment as given under POCSO. Now, what does it actually talk about? Child pornography. This includes any kind of visual depiction of sexually explicit conduct involving a child, such as in the form of photographs, in the form of videos, or any kind of digital or computer generated images that are actually indistinguishable from the real picture of the real child. Next, it also includes the images created, adapted, or morphed or modified in order to appear to depict a child. So this is actually the meaning of child pornography under the POCSO Act. Now let us understand few of the salient features of or the provisions that are actually involved in this particular POCSO Act. First one, it maintains the confidentiality of the victim unless and until explicitly permitted by the special court. So here POCSO mandates non-disclosure of a child victim's identity in order to protect them from the social stigma as well as the vulnerability or the victimization, ensuring confidentiality unless explicitly permitted by the special court. The next one, gender neutral provisions. The Act is gender neutral. It offers equal protection to both the male as well as a female child, and now that you actually have this High Court ruling also saying that it is gender neutral, the offender, that is he, the pronoun he, does not actually apply only to male but also can be applied to a female. and also it actually requires mandatory reporting of the sexual offences for the individuals who have knowledge of such offences to report them to authorities. This actually ensures that the offences are addressed very swiftly and rapidly and that the victims receive the necessary support. The next one, it is actually a child friendly legal process. Okay, that is, the act stipulates the child friendly procedures right from reporting, recording the evidence, the investigation, the trial of the offences, etc. It is very child friendly because this actually involves a recording of the evidence by the child or the child's statement at a place of their choice, and also preferably a female police officer actually takes is involved in the collection of the evidence or the statement that is given, and then ensuring the child is not exposed to the accused during the process of trial, and also allowing the presence of a trusted person during the recording of this particular statement. Next one, there is provision for establishment of special courts where it ensures speedy trial of cases under the Act, and also there is application of the last seen theory. So, what does this mean? In cases where the child victim was actually last seen with the suspect can be assumed to be the perpetrator if the time gap between being seen and the occurrence of the crime is minimal, making it unlikely for someone else to have committed the offense. And also the next one, it provides detailed guidelines for the institutions where it actually emphasizes the responsibility of various institutions housing the children in order to report the cases of abuse, particularly highlighting the vulnerability of children with disabilities. And next one, it also issues severe penalties starting from stringent punishments, which is, it can also be simple to rigorous imprisonment of varying terms depending on the severity or the gravity of the offense, ensuring that the severity of the crime is adequately addressed. Okay. So, this is actually the detailed discussion about what is this POCSO Act, how was the implementation of this legislation in India was possible, for what purpose was it actually brought into force, and how has it actually helped in prevention of prevention of children or protection of children from sexual offences or the atrocity. Now that it is a landmark judgment by the Delhi High Court stating that it is gender neutral and even a woman can actually be booked for perpetration of such sexual offences. So, I hope that you actually enjoyed this particular live session. So, for more such live sessions and interesting discussions, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS YouTube channel. Thank you.